Good morning. It's Tuesday, May 7th, 2024. This is Up North News Radio. I'm Pat Kreitlow up here in Chippewa Falls, just waiting for the rain to show up. Greg Bach is in Waukesha, and coming up today on the program, we'll start in our first hour, like we often do on Tuesdays, talking to Sharita Booker and Christina Laurie, two of my colleagues at Up North News, along with Selena Heller. That makes up the team here in Wisconsin. And Christina and Sharita will talk about stories that are in our newsletter and on social media that have been pretty popular over the past couple of weeks or so, including Christina's fascination with the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile and finally being able to meet somebody who works in it. Then a couple of great guests in our second hour. We'll have Robert Kraig, the head of Citizen Action Wisconsin, talking about medical debt. And then at 7:30, Congressman Mark Pocan joins us to talk about the kinds of things Congress could be doing were it not for all the internal squabbling and drama by the party currently in the majority, the very slim majority in the U.S. House. We'll be joined by Chad Holmes, as always, on a Tuesday as well. We'll have the forecast, tell you how the Brewers did last night, today's history lesson, and so much more. Coming up across the Civic Media Radio Network when this show officially gets started at 6:06, just 4.5 minutes from now. We'll see you then. All right, here we go.
All across Wisconsin from Civic Media, this is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Wausau studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Chad Holmes.
Well, if you say so, here we are. Hey there, Wisconsin. Good morning. It is 6:06 on this Tuesday morning, the 7th of May, 2024. Another beautiful day to have you here up north, live from Lake Wausau, from wherever you're listening across the Civic Media Radio Network, through the app, social media, or by podcast. I've got a question for you. Do you get the difference between a spending cut and a price cut? Because it appears some of the people that would like Eric Hovde to defeat Tammy Baldwin are a little confused about that. And as a result, an ad attacking Tammy Baldwin had to be pulled and changed because of a misunderstanding of basic economics. We'll explain that in the next couple of minutes. It is starting to rain across the western edge of Wisconsin right now. Basically, if you're within the first 25 to 50 miles of the border with Minnesota or Iowa, you're getting some rain. Grantsburg, Amory, down to Arcadia, Onalaska, Boscobel, places east of there. Nothing yet, but it will be on the way, and we'll get more about your forecast coming up a little later this morning. You can also reach us throughout the course of the show here at 855-75-CIVIC, 855-75-CIVIC, or you can use the Civic Media app to reach out to us, or put a comment on one of the many Facebook pages where we broadcast, the Up North News Facebook page, Civic Media, Bull Falls Radio in Wausau, and more. And you can always email us. That address is radio@upnorthnewswi.com. Coming up this morning, well, it's Tuesday, so we'll hear from two of my Up North News colleagues. Sharita Booker, our social media manager, will tell us what's been especially popular and heavily clicked of our social media posts. Christina Laurie edits our newsletter and chases down some stories now and then, and she has had a fascination with the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile for some time, and she has taken that interest to a new level and tells us all about meeting one of the hot doggers who serve as ambassadors and navigators for a 27-foot-long motorized Frankfurter. And so we'll have that discussion with Christina this hour. Then a couple of great guests in our second hour. We'll visit with Robert Kraig, who leads Citizen Action Wisconsin, and we'll talk primarily about the topic of medical debt and what can be done yet with healthcare reform to reduce the incidences of personal bankruptcy because of healthcare concerns. And then at 7:30, we will talk to Congressman Mark Pocan and find out what, if anything, is coming out of the halls of Congress these days as the slim Republican majority continues to fight amongst themselves. So all that and more, Chad Holmes as well on the way. 6 a.m. temperatures across Wisconsin are without a doubt the warmest that they have been so far this spring, which feels really good as we keep putting distance between ourselves and that cold weather from not that terribly long ago now. Lake Wausau, we're at 59 degrees, Hayward 56, Park Falls 53, Wausau 54, Green Bay's at 55, La Crosse is the warm spot at 62 degrees already this morning. Wisconsin Rapids is at 57, Oshkosh 56, Madison at 60 degrees, and it is 52 warm, wonderful degrees where we find the warm and wonderful Greg Bach standing by in Waukesha. Mr. Bach, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. It's Pat Kreitlow Show.
I sometimes wonder that drive that you make is about how long? 40 minutes?
50, 55, 50, about 50 minutes.
50 minutes. And it seems like many days you're composing a new Pat Kreitlow Show jingle.
Oh, I've got a collection of them. I've got an anthology.
An anthology.
And they should be released 100 years after my passing.
Well, under the category Today I Learned, although it was actually back on Saturday, but I learned there's a song out there that's actually named Kreitlow.
What?
And let me back up a step. We're meeting some of my wife's colleagues, in the clinic system. So these are folks who are in Eau Claire, and Sherry does most of her work in Rice Lake.
Yeah.
So we're talking to these folks in Eau Claire, and one of them brought a spouse along, and she's kind of giving me this look. And eventually she says, as often happens these days, it takes longer for people to go, oh, you're Pat Kreitlow, that guy from TV, because the guy on TV was 20 years younger, more than 20 pounds lighter, not nearly this gray on top. But at some point it clicks into them like, hey, you look like that guy on TV. You look like you could be his grandpa. And I say, yeah, that was me.
Ouch.
Yeah. And then she says, what, basically she says one of her favorite bands, which is called not Jägermeister, but the Jaggernauts. I'm sorry. The Jaggernauts.
Okay.
And they're kind of, I guess she described them as kind of a punk rockish band.
Okay.
And, some bands name their songs after things that are not necessarily, in the lyrics. Like I for example, Nirvana is the line "Smells Like Teen Spirit" in that song anyplace? I have no idea. There's a song called Kreitlow, and I said, "Shut up." And she said, "Yeah, really."
And she's like, "That's a weird thing to say to a person you just met."
Yeah, but sure enough, I looked at them. I'm like,
"Shut up!"
Oh my God, there's a song there, and
is it about you?
No, and I can't quite make out all the lyrics, but I get the impression it's like they're in a dream or something, or they can't get to sleep or something. The lyrics kind of go all over, but I really like the beat to it. So it's like, look, this is Up North News Radio. This is not the Pat Kreitlow Show. I'm hoping to have a Pat Kreitlow Show someday, maybe after Up North News Radio, but right now I'm really liking what I'm doing here. But I feel like I already found the theme song, if it actually comes up. So
so it's what the name of the band is what again?
The Jaggernauts.
The Jaggernauts.
Not astronauts, but like Mick Jagger.
Yeah, but it's spelled like your last name.
Yeah, the song is
so interesting.
I know. I found it on Bandcamp, the site for up and coming bands. So it's not that I don't appreciate your attempts to create a Pat Kreitlow jingle. We just might actually have one that's out there already.
This was a long walk to tell me, Greg, your songs aren't up to snuff. That's what you're telling me.
No.
I don't appreciate it.
Simply saying you're part of a group project, whether you liked it or not.
This could have been an offline email saying, Greg, enough with we got it taken care of. You don't have to anymore.
It could have, but then I couldn't tell you how much I appreciate it. And I do. Tell you what. If there ever is a Pat Kreitlow show and it's 2 hours long like this one, I'll let them do one of the hours and you have the other hours jingle all to yourself.
Oh my gosh, it's gonna be Jim Croce type. It's gonna be like, listen to Pat Kreitlow.
Little time in the bottle. Yeah.
If I could say Pat Kreitlow in a bottle, I'd be thrown in jail for my life.
Ever? Yeah, they frown on that. All right. Well, the Brewers were losers yesterday in Kansas City. They actually started the game early, a half hour early, to try to avoid any thunderstorms that were moving into the area. So they got the game in, and the Royals had been struggling against Brewers starting pitcher Bryce Wilson for the first 6 innings last night. But after he was replaced in the 7th inning, the Royals scored 3 runs off reliever Jared Koenig for a come-from-behind 3-2 win. Gary Sanchez hit a 2-run homer for the only significant Brewers offense. They'll do it again tonight. Colin Ray will get the start, and then they'll play again tomorrow afternoon before heading home for a series versus the Cardinals starting Thursday. You can hear this evening's game starting at 6:10 on News from the Center and Richland Center, WRJN Racine Kenosha, Oshkosh Air Support, and 98 Q Country in Park Falls. It's exactly 6:15 right now, and I wanted to get to the story about one of the groups that would like to see Eric Hovde defeat Tammy Baldwin and the big oopsie that resulted from it. Basically, the headline will say something like, "This billionaire's PAC is spreading a big lie about Tammy Baldwin, Medicare, and taxpayer savings." And it all comes from a PAC called Restoration PAC. It is funded by Richard Eline from the company Uline, and it basically just twists the significance of the Inflation Reduction Act and all the many ways it is saving money for the government, meaning you, the taxpayers, as well as for Medicare recipients. And this was brought to my attention by a story in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel yesterday. That said, Restoration PAC had to replace an ad that claimed that Tammy Baldwin voted to, quote, cut Medicare funding and use it for something else. Progressive attorneys from the Elias Law Group reached out to an advertising purchaser to tell them about the ad, and the ad was pulled and replaced. Now, Richard Uihlein of Uihlein, and because Uihlein, you've seen the company, Uline. The last name Uihlein is Uihlein, and it's part of the Schlitz Brewing family fortune. And Richard Uihlein and his wife Elizabeth have already given more than $35 million to right-wing PACs and candidates in this cycle alone. He was one of the billionaires, along with Diana Hendricks and Beloit, who basically dragged Ron Johnson across the finish line by pouring so many millions of dollars into ads that were critical to a fault of Mandela Barnes in his race. So now Dick Uihlein is trying to do this again to Tammy Baldwin, but got called out when the ad falsely claimed, in a way that's been repeatedly debunked, on how President Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, because it allows Medicare to now negotiate with big pharmaceutical companies for bulk pricing on drugs for Medicare recipients, it's saving the government money. It's saving us money. It's saving taxpayers at least $162 billion over a 10-year period. And some Republicans and conservatives have tried to make it sound as if Medicare were therefore facing a $162 billion cut, when it's not. Medicare recipients aren't just getting the same benefits, they're actually getting better benefits. But because the federal government can now negotiate for bulk pricing with the drug companies, something that Republicans had blocked for 20 years, you're getting the same Medicare services and then some for less money spent on it. But they wanted to somehow pervert the meaning to say that Tammy Baldwin and others were cutting Medicare, when that was certainly not the case. It's the taxpayers saving money for the same and even better services. And that just goes to show you to what depths Tammy Baldwin's opponents like Eric Hovde or allies like the Restoration PAC are willing to go to try to muddy up this race. On the other side of this break, we will catch up with Sharita Booker, and then shortly after that, Christina Laurie, all on this Tuesday morning, live from Lake Wausau. This is Up North News Radio on the Civic Media Radio Network. I'm Pat Kreitlow. All right, now this is the part of the program where we talk to our social media manager, Sharita Booker, who puts up things on all of the Up North News social media platforms, and we get around to what's being read the most, clicked the most, watched the most, shared the most. Sharita, how you doing today?
Good, Pat. How are you?
Good. It's something about how some stories just have some staying power, and unfortunately for Senate candidate Eric Hovde, the internet is still getting some traction out of his attempt to say the Pledge of Allegiance and everything that resulted from it. So one of our posts got a lot of traffic. Tell us all about that.
Yeah, so as some of you may already know, we talked about this last week. He was in Slinger, and during his Pledge of Allegiance, he left out the phrase "One Nation under God," and he also ended it with an "Amen," and it's not a prayer. This moment was compared to a sitcom about a fictional vice president's many awkward moments on the Rachel Maddow show on MSNBC, and she played the clip while incorporating the closing credits of the show Veep, while also having a good laugh.
Oh,
Leah left a comment saying, "So he's not into the One Nation part," and Roxanne said, "Oh."
oh.
Um, Smith and Gallagher said, "I saw this segment on MSNBC and knew you posted, and it was hilarious and at the same time sad that he even has a platform. We don't miss a beat," said Smith and Gallagher.
It's true. It's true. We look, you only get comedy gold like that so often. And when it happens, I mean, you got to run with it. And then at the end, again, as the fictitious credits are rolling, the marching band is playing the national anthem, and you see Hovde there with his hands in his pockets. And he looks over and he sees the guy next to him has his hand on his heart. So right away pulls a hand out of his pocket and puts it on his heart, like he's never gone through this before. It was just so strange. But
So cringe.
clearly people noticed, and yeah, the word cringeworthy got used a lot here. Let's head to Milwaukee for another story that was extremely popular. And downtown Milwaukee, obviously, it's like all cities, changes over the years. And I had been away from the city for quite a while. And when I came back, 7, 8 years ago and went downtown, you can't help but see it's right there off 794, the Milwaukee Public Market. And it's just a gorgeous place. And folks notice it not just in town, but all over the country, Sharita.
Yep, it was named America's best public market because it's a gathering, well, quote, "It's a gathering place where great taste is always in season." And that post got almost 400 likes on Instagram. And I would like to say one of my favorite places to eat there is at St. Paul Fish Company. They have the best lobster rolls. They have really great fried shrimp and fried perch, and it's always nice and crispy. And then you have to try their Bloody Marys also because it comes with the salmon jerky, which tastes like bacon, and it's super good.
Oh, for crying out loud. Now I got to go back. I mean, and as I was looking at the list here, there was as well a place called Pat's Rib Place. And that must be relatively new. I don't remember seeing that before.
It is, and I haven't tried it yet, but the menu options look great. The food looks great, and that'll be my next thing to try when I go there again.
Oh, there's a candy shop. There's Dynamite, like with Thai food, the
Mhm.
Green Kitchen, the Foltz Family Market that makes pizza. It's just an absolute must hit. Next time anybody's travels, take them down to Milwaukee, save some time to get downtown and give that a try. And I'm glad so many people liked it. It's nice to see that kind of popularity for, downtown resurgence down there.
Yep, and a little old Milwaukee.
All right, from Milwaukee, let's head to Seymour, and a special delivery of sorts by a local UPS driver. Let's hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, UPS driver John Strand was passing through Seymour when he saw a cow in labor. He said the calf was out and still had the sack over his face. So John jumped into action to hop the fence and pulled the calf out. And more good news with that, both the cow and the calf are healthy. And the owners decide to name the female calf after him, which is Joni. And that post had almost 400 likes. And Terry said, "Wow, UPS really does deliver." Rosemary said, "We need more people like him in the world." And we sure do.
Well, we do because plenty of people would pass by going, "Oh gosh, that's I hope the farmer knows about that or whatever." And other people just leap into action. And look, I married a farm girl, and I couldn't even start to say how many calves she's helped deliver over the years. Whether I could do this passing by, I'm not so sure. Sharita, you and I might both look at each other like, ain't never seen anything like that before.
Me neither. Like, okay, do I have gloves in the car?
But thankfully, we've got people like John there who now has a calf, Joni, named after him, because not all heroes wear capes, but sometimes they wear a UPS uniform. So for that and so many other social media posts, some of it about our reporting, some of it about the stories that other folks are sharing all around Wisconsin, just look for Up North News on all of your favorite social media platforms. Sharita Booker, thanks so much as always. Have a great day.
You too, Pat.
All right, we're just a few minutes away from Pam Yankee and the Midwest Farm Report. Then my colleague Christina Laurie will be here and talking all about the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile and the young college-age ambassadors who take it all around the country and the kinds of activities that they have to take part in. Tomorrow on the program, it'll be Wednesday, so that means we'll have our climate check report with Melissa Baldoff, and we'll have our homeroom segment. And it's especially important this week since it is Teacher Appreciation Week. So I'm sure we will be talking about the many ways that we don't only appreciate teachers this week, but could do a better job of respecting them all year long. The Wisconsin Supreme Court agreed late last week that they are going to take up the case and decide whether mobile voting sites are legal, and they're going to take it up directly without having it go through appeals courts first. The Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, a right-wing law firm, said just about a year and a half ago on behalf of the Racine County Republican Party that they believe Racine city officials illegally used a voting van to collect absentee ballots that year. A circuit court judge ruled in January that state law doesn't allow mobile voting sites to operate. The Racine city clerk and the Democratic National Committee asked the state Supreme Court in February to review the case directly and skip the appeals court process. And because progressives now control the court by a 4-3 margin, thanks to the election of Janet Protasiewicz, the majority progressive justices agreed to take on the case, which may increase the likelihood of a reversal from that county judge's ruling. And it really does come down to a couple of things here. First off, much like drop boxes for absentee ballots, do these things that assist people in voting have to be spelled out, every little detail, that's the only thing that, say, city and county elections officials can work on? Or by the nature of their job, which is to, facilitate voting, do they have wide berth to engage in activities that assist citizens in voting? And of course, the other thing that it brings to mind as well is that, again, to this day, in this era of American politics, who thought we'd see a time where one political party was so committed to making it harder for Americans to vote, making it harder for qualified citizens to vote rather than easier? Christina Laurie coming up, followed by today's history lesson. This is Up North News Radio, live from Lake Wausau on the Civic Media Radio Network. I'm Pat Kreitlow.
Oh, I'd love to be an Oscar Mayer wiener. That is what I truly like to be. 'Cause if I were an Oscar Mayer wiener, everyone would be in love with me.
All right. Most of the time we play Bill Withers to bring in Christina Laurie to do the uplift. I feel like the Oscar Mayer jingle would work better, just because we're going to talk about, you are going to learn so much about the Wienermobile before this segment is done. But first, there were other seasonal activities that were going on. Christina, good morning. Understand you were recently in the Crazy Legs race in Madison, but not racing so much.
Yeah, I take the race out of it. I just do it for the fun community. Getting to how often do you get to do an 8K? First of all, that's a very random length, and you get to do it with Bucky, while all the money is supporting Wisconsin athletics. So it's always the last weekend of April every year. It's called the Crazy Legs Classic, named after Crazy Legs, the football player, of course.
Crazy Legs Hirsch, yeah.
Yes. And all the money goes to Wisconsin athletics. So it's a great cause. I'd recommend it to anyone. And usually end of April, I mean, I think that there were a couple of years where it snowed during the race. So this year did fare well in the weather department. You never know what you're going to get here. Could be a blizzard. Also could be a high of 80.
Yes. I've run it one time 7 or 8 years ago, and it was cloudy with flurries, but it still ends inside the bowl of the stadium, right?
Yes.
So you've done this 8K, and in this case, I'm running it, and then you turn the corner and realize you get to go through, an entrance that not a lot of people get to enter. And you come in like right through the end zone, and you work your way across the field. And then the finish line is on the other side of the football field. And then you can go right up into the stands and kind of rest and watch everybody else that's kind of coming in to finish. It was definitely one of the more unique, I was going to say 5Ks, but this was 8 that I'd ever been in. And it's very interesting. So it's kind of fun to hear that you were walking that one.
Yes. And I have to say I was a little envious because so when I went to school, I've mentioned it before, you guys are probably sick of it. I went to school at Illinois, and the only race that they have there where you're finish on the 50-yard line of their Memorial Stadium, like our Camp Randall, is either a half marathon or a marathon. So I thought that it was going to be a genius idea freshman year. Like, what better way to just like preemptively combat the freshman 15 than to sign up for a marathon at the end of your first year. So that's what I did. And I ran a whole 26.2 miles. If any of you have been to Champaign-Urbana, I love the place. There are not 26.2 scenic miles to run there. And I ran 26 of them just for that last 0.2 finish inside Memorial Stadium. I would not recommend that race. Stick to Crazy Legs. I think Wisconsin knows what it's doing here. You just run that 8K, get a solid workout in, and then can go right to the cheese curds.
Exactly. And look, if you're all done with the run or the walk, you need a ride, you can always try to hitch one. And with any given luck, an Oscar Mayer Wienermobile might come by and fit the bill. And you've done a couple of different stories about the Wienermobile because, of course, Oscar Mayer has had a connection to Madison in the past. So people are amused by the Wienermobile all over the country and may not understand the Wisconsin connection to it.
Well, when I first moved here, I was just amazed by how many times I saw the Wienermobile here. And I was just like, I previously when I spotted it in the Chicago area where I'm from, it was like, the greatest thing because I could count on one hand the number of times I've seen it in my entire life. And then I moved here and I was seeing it multiple times a month. I was like, what's up? And as it turns out, I should have known Oscar Mayer's Wienermobile headquarters is in Madison. So it makes sense that I'm seeing more of these. And I just, every year I feel like I peel back another layer of what's up with the Wienermobile, and it just excites me every single time. So I hope other people are still as enamored as I am with it. But this year I decided that it was finally time. I needed to get myself on board this 27-foot long hot dog with wheels. So I made it happen. I called up my connection, a former journalist who actually interned for me at the TV station I worked at in Madison. She has been a hot dogger for the past year, right? It's a program that's actually more difficult to get in than Harvard. that school accepts 4% of applicants. Oscar Mayer accepts just 1% to become a hot dogger. And what you do, it's only available to recent grads the first year after graduation from college. They travel 20,000 miles, 16 states, more than 40 cities for a full year on the Wienermobile. And they're basically Oscar Mayer's ambassadors. They're passing out hot dog whistles. They're going to community events. They're sometimes up, Sam, who I interviewed and tagged along with, she was explaining to me that, I was trying to ask her like what a typical day in the life is. And basically what I learned is that there's no typical day in the life. She's like, sometimes we're up at 6 a.m. to make it to the next city. Other times we're loading into a parade lineup at 8 p.m. at night. And, her typical weekends are Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So it's a very atypical job, but it's truly a once in a lifetime experience.
Well, especially from the standpoint of, networking. And for a lot of people, their first job should really be about, how many people can you meet? How much can you learn? And boy, to be doing this in a Wienermobile instead of a stuffy cubicle someplace, it's pretty cool.
Very cool. And it's also for people like Sam. So Sam is interested, obviously, since she interned at a news station in college. She's interested in possibly pursuing journalism. She says she's had a few job offers. She's currently looking through them. She's unsure if she wants to go into that or marketing, sales, business, PR, HR. She has limitless options, but all of them, she has skills that would fit any of those roles that she learned from spending a year in a rolling hot dog, which you wouldn't necessarily think, but she has to set up a lot of these events herself. She calls ahead and makes connections with city planners, people who from nonprofits. She said it's about 50-50 of someone from Oscar Mayer corporate making her schedule and her getting to devise her own events. Sometimes they'll just send her to a city and give her free reign and she can go form as many what they call meetups.
Meetups, M-E-A-T. Yeah, yes. I get it.
As they want in different cities. So it's fun. She feels like a little bit party planner, a little bit ambassador. I did ask her, I was curious. So her region that she's been traveling for the past year is the Midwest to the southeastern United States, that chunk. She's got 16 different states there. I was curious what area is most excited about the Wienermobile, because kind of when I moved here, I felt like people weren't as excited and I felt like there was something wrong with them, but they're just, we see it so much here. She said 2 places. First, Chattanooga, Tennessee. They were really just randomly excited. And she said she had a really fun week there. Tennessee as a whole was generally excited about the Wienermobile. And then she also got the chance to go take the Wienermobile back to her small hometown of Nelson, Wisconsin, in the Mississippi River Valley, population of just 300 people. The Wienermobile, they were able to look at past records, had never been within 50 miles of that city. So her exact quote, it was funny. I wrote it down because I didn't want to forget it. She said, the Wienermobile and I were the talk of the town. And I just think that put it perfectly because, it's just cool for her to share her current passion. And we did a story on her when she first started her year here. And I just this week published a follow-up to that, as she nears the end of her hot dogging term, what that's like. And definitely she told me privately that the people of her town thought just the fact that she was in a news article was cool to begin with. So shout out if anyone's listening from Nelson. Your town sounds beautiful.
Oh, without a doubt, of course. Now I had to go, to the, the interwebs and find out what I could learn about the Wienermobile through trivia and things like that. The Wienermobile was created by Oscar Mayer's nephew, Carl Mayer. Do you have it in front of me? Do you know the year?
No, I don't. Are you quizzing me?
I'm quizzing you. It's not a real quiz because I didn't tip you off. 1936.
Oh, I was gonna guess. I was gonna guess 1927.
Okay.
So was I within 10?
Yes, you were.
Okay.
Yeah, something. I got a kick out of the Wikipedia entry. Of course, has to get into great detail so that we know that it was throughout the 70s. It was on a 1969 Chevy motorhome chassis with Ford Thunderbird taillights. In 76, it was given a makeover with the latest technology involving fiberglass and styrofoam. In 1995, you mentioned that it's 27 feet long. In 1995, that's when it was enlarged. I guess you could supersize your Wienermobile, and for the first time, the windows would be able to open in there. I can't imagine being stuck in there all day long and you couldn't get the windows open.
They do have a nice skylight.
Oh, cool. Okay, all right. And then in 2023, last year, we remember, we've talked about it on this program, one of the few shameful moments in the Oscar Mayer era where they tried to change the name to the Frankmobile as if they thought any of us were going to go along with that. It lasted all of 6 months.
I do have a bone to pick. If anyone from Oscar Mayer just happens to be listening to this, when you Google Wienermobile, and I did that because I don't typically type that word, and I was not sure if it was IE or EI. Somehow I thought it was WEINER, and that is not correct. However, when you type that into Google, the first thing that comes up is Wienermobile with the official Oscar Mayer Wienermobile page, and it's spelled that way. But then when you click on it, all of the Wienermobile spellings inside that story are IE, the correct way. So I would love if somebody could fix that. That would be great. I don't know how to get this message to them, but
don't you think that was on purpose for, what those of us in the business call SEO, search engine optimization, that they knew people weren't going to know. So you put it in both ways, but then you bring them into the page that has it the right way.
Maybe it was strategic. So maybe this thing here is spelling doesn't matter, kids.
Who cares about spelling if there's a 27-foot long motorized wiener, going through your neighborhood? It's just a lot of fun that way. So you got, this is like the big adventure now. I mean, you will never be able to.
I peaked.
Yeah, you've peaked in terms of the Wienermobile. Now you need to find something else. You need to find, remember when Johnsonville had, like, they turned a semi-trailer into like the world's largest grill or something like that? We should find out if anybody else is doing anything like this, unique with vehicles.
What's funny you say this. So I actually am starting in our newsletter a segment called Weird Wisconsin. This is just a working title. And there are just so many, like, really just what it is, weird things happening in Wisconsin. I mean, in your neck of the woods, I know it's normal to you, but it is not normal to the rest of the world to have a giant 6-pack full of beer just off the side of the road.
As they do in La Crosse, yes.
So yep. I if anyone has anything else weird, like, can you email me or find my Facebook page and send me a message? Because I'd love to check it out. I'm just interested in things that people are not covering. And that's what we try to focus on in our newsletter. The world is just filled with so much crappy news, negative headlines, and we have so much good to celebrate here in Wisconsin, especially in the warmer months. So please let me know.
So much crappy news. I feel seen all of a sudden. But yes, it's why we got you here once a week to lift up our spirits and introduce us to some of the fun things about Wisconsin, including Wienermobiles. And again, to send a news tip about any of these stories, how should they do that?
Well, they can either email me, Christina, CHR, Lori, LOREY, at UpNorthNewsWI.com. You can find my Facebook page, Christina Lori. Just shoot me a message that way if that's easier for you. Or just go to UpNorthNewsWI.com and click the button at the top, subscribe to our newsletter. It's free, arrives in your inbox every day. But I feel like we don't advertise this enough. If you're not like a check your email every day type of person, and you signing up for a daily emailed newsletter sounds awful to you, you can select an option to only get it once a week, which I think is great. Maybe you're retired and you don't want to be checking your email every day. I'm unfortunately have to be glued to my email for work, but I'm looking forward to the days when I don't have to and can be a weekly newsletter subscriber as well. So there's an option for everyone.
I'm waiting for the day when I can finally subscribe to a newsletter that tells me about all the newsletters that are in my mailbox and that I don't have to read all of them. It'll just be a summary of the best.
Hey, that's probably coming. I feel like that'd be actually pretty easy to program for AI.
It's kind of like this whole bundling thing. If we just keep bundling these channels enough times, you will have reinvented cable. I mean, that's all we're talking about.
Well, in newsletters, they keep getting longer and longer. Soon, they're just going to call them a newspaper.
Newspaper. You should just print them out. Yes. All right, Christina. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
You too.
We've got today's history lesson coming up next. You're Up North. Nice little George Harrison guitar strumming to kick things off at 9 minutes before 7 o'clock on this Tuesday. The former Beatle released this tune, Give Me Love, on this day in 1973. Also in today's history lesson, hey, congratulations to Vladimir Putin, today celebrating 24 years since he became president of Russia, and today is also kicking off a new term as the still president of Russia. I have a feeling if you listen carefully, 24 years ago today, I think people heard him say, I just want to be a dictator on day one. Turns out it doesn't work that way. And you can call yourself president, but trust me, he doesn't call himself president, supreme ruler, dear leader, whatever it is that he wants people to call him at that moment. So congratulations, Vlad. Good to know we're going to have you around for a little while longer. On this day in 1824 came the world premiere of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony in Vienna, Austria. It's a long piece, of course, but there are a couple of different parts you may be familiar with. You may know this part of Beethoven's Ninth by the choral symphony that is included within it. Give a listen. Ode to Joy is part of it. But there's another part much closer to the beginning that Americans actually heard on their TV every night from the late 50s to the late 60s. The precursor to NBC Nightly News was the Huntley-Brinkley Report, and they took this part of Beethoven's Ninth to introduce the nightly news. And while we're on the subject of NBC News, a bittersweet anniversary, this would have been the 74th birthday for Tim Russert, the truly last great journalist at NBC, the moderator of Meet the Press, who absolutely gave no wiggle room to politicians who came on for the things that they said, held them to account, did his homework. This is some of how his colleague Tom Brokaw made the announcement that Tim had passed away in 2008.
Our beloved colleague, one of the premier journalists of our time, Tim Russert, died this afternoon after collapsing at work at the NBC News Bureau in Washington, D.C. And I think I can invoke personal privilege to say that this news division will not be the same without his strong, clear voice. He'll be missed as he was loved greatly. I'm Tom Brokaw, NBC News in New York.
Again, Tim Russert, born 74 years ago today. On this day in 1977, the Eagles hit number one with this instant classic. Now you're saying to yourself, are we going to hear Don Henley start to sing the first verse? Maybe not. This ramp runs for 52 seconds on a record that goes for over 6 minutes.
We're playing the whole thing.
But it gives me time to tell this story from this day in 1968 when a guy riding home from his band gig, a keyboard player named Reginald Dwight, was looking for a stage name to use for his solo career. There were two people in the plane who were in his band. One was Elton Dean. The other was lead singer Long John Baldry. And he asked if he can appropriate their names to concoct a new one. So it was on this day in 1968 that the name Elton John was born. Hey, I got it in before Don. How do you like that?
That was perfect.
It's like all those years as a DJ at the college radio station would finally pay off. And they did. 4 decades later. Wonderful. The number one song this day. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Not number one. It's a birthday. Thelma Houston is 78 years old today, and she had a big old disco hit in 1976.
Don't leave me this way. I can't
Again, 78 years old today for Thelma Houston. Eagle Eye Cherry, that's his real name, is 55 years old today. With this would be his top single that was on the charts.
Say tonight, fight the break of dawn, come tomorrow. I'll be
A little bit earlier, we played Terrence Trent D'Arby. He hit number one with Wishing Well on this day in 1988, mostly because MTV was playing that video over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And in 2005, Gwen Stefani hit number one with Holla Back Girl, which we will play a little bit later on in the program. On the national calendar today, it's National Tourism Day. It's World Asthma Day. It's Bladder Cancer Awareness Day. It is Barrier Awareness Day for people with disabilities. So it's a good time to take a look around your surroundings, especially, say, in the workplace, and see if there are some barriers that maybe you've looked past, but could maybe fix those to alleviate access by others. This is National Foster Care Day. This is National Home Brew Day. So for my buddy Kevin and everybody else who brews their own at home, that's a day for you. This is Packaging Design Day, where we're supposed to appreciate creative packaging design, which is fine. I'll recognize it as long as we can also all agree that whoever designed the packaging for compact discs back in the day, the plastic wrap that couldn't come off unless you basically broke the case, if we can agree there's a special place in hell for that person and a few other really tough to open packages, then I'll celebrate the creative ones as well. Because you get those things.
And that concludes Pat's Rants for Tuesday.
May 7th. You know what? Another one.
Oh, he's still going, folks. He's still going.
Apple has this beautiful packaging, whether you're getting an iPhone or a MacBook or whatever, but then you go to kind of break it down, to put it in the trash or the recycling. And I mean, it's not super glue that they're using. It's something stronger than that, and it doesn't lend itself well to the recycling pile.
There are people who are listening right now, Pat, who are clutching their pearls going, you throw away the boxes?
Oh my gosh, I finally did. I had so many boxes.
Yeah.
So many iPhones, iPods, iPads.
I had a box of boxes.
I've got the iMac that this show is done on. It's a monster box.
Yeah.
It's now in the garage, going to go out with the trash next week. I might bring it in during the news here. And finally, this is National Cosmo Day. the drink, not the magazine. Little vodka, cranberry juice, triple sec, lemon juice. Perfect breakfast drink for people with severe problems. Please don't be one of those. We will be talking to Robert Kraig from Citizen Action and Congressman Mark Pocan, all in the second hour of Up North News Radio, live from Lake Wausau on the Civic Media Radio Network.
She also understands.
Good morning, Robert.
Good morning. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you for being here today.
Great to be here. I enjoyed your thing at the top of the last hour, the top of the last hour, the end of it. That was cool.
Thank you. We will get going here in just over 30 seconds. Start with a little weather report, and then we'll get going here.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'll tuck you back in the waiting room for just a couple of minutes here. Be right back.
All across Wisconsin from Civic Media, this is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Minnesota studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Brightlow.
Along with Greg Bach and meteorologist Brittany Merlot on this Tuesday morning, May the 7th, 2024. May the 7th. This is set into Mai, right? Do we have any good Norwegians on this panel at all? No? No? Okay. Wait, you're pointing to yourself, Mr. Bach. Is this in fact set into Mai?
Oh, I have no idea. I'm like I'm Norwegian.
Okay.
But yes, it is, Pat.
Okay.
On behalf of Norway.
Especially since, right away, here's how quickly we can Google things up. First hit is the Set into My Festival in Stoughton, Wisconsin. So I hope that folks in Stoughton don't hate us too much for this. Constitution Day out of Norway. All right, Brittany, feel free to bail us out, and literally bail us out, given that the rain has started falling across the western edge of Wisconsin. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
We're okay. We're all wet. It started, the rain started up a little bit ago here and runs basically through Rice Lake and Chippewa Falls, down through Richland Center. And I have a feeling it's going to continue to eke its way eastward this morning.
Oh, it sure is. But I have a question for you. Since you have the ground truth for me, how hard is it coming down out there right now?
Oh, okay. It was coming down at a pretty good clip for about 15 minutes or so. Now it's more of a light rain, so the heavy stuff didn't last terribly long. I thought I'd heard someplace that kind of the more active, rumbly stuff was going to be, further south than the Chippewa Valley. So I think it just looks like we're going to get a nice little soaking this morning.
Yes. So that's what a good chunk of the state is going to see. A little bit of heavy rain at first, kind of spreading out a little bit towards the end of it. But we will see a good few hours of light rainfall. Then it's going to wind down, and we may even see a little bit of sun peek out. Temperatures will spike to some mid-60s further south in the state. But the further north that you live, we're going to hang out to the mid to upper 50s today under mostly cloudy skies. So some severe weather may fire back up later on this afternoon, mainly after 3 o'clock and through our evening hours. And again, that does look further south, but we can't say that even up into central portions of Wisconsin or even on the east portions that you won't see anything severe. Now, if it does turn severe, We're looking at some gusty winds, some larger hail, and that's about it. All the risks of tornadoes should stay well south and away from us here. As you can see, this line that's moving through first is kind of like a bow. It really pushes out, and the main strong winds with the system are going to be more into Illinois. So we're going to be avoiding that with this first round. Just grab the umbrella and get ready to be soaked.
Okay, we can do that. And by the way, this is what I get for speculating out loud, but we'll do this again in 10 days when it's actually set in Mai, which is not on the 7th of May, it's on the 17th of May.
You're close.
So I hope to get back
I'm
into the good
offended
graces.
as a Norwegian.
You're offended. Who didn't know the date? Who?
How
It
dare
was you, Greg Bach. It was you.
My Viking blood boils.
From Rob in Tigerton, good morning. It's cloudy and 53. A great day yesterday. I had my mowing jobs, then helped a neighbor farmer with field work. What I remember about disco songs, talking about Thelma Houston at the end of our last hour, was the bumper music on the NFL on CBS when they'd play before going to a commercial.
Interesting.
Disco, yeah. I mean, when that's all there was in the late 70s, that was your bumper music. Was
Nowadays
disco.
it's like, we are very tough men playing football now.
That's exactly how the music sounds. Brittany, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
Such a good sport. All right, we'll talk to you later. Let's spend a little time now visiting with Robert Kraig from Citizen Action. We haven't had Robert on for a while here to talk about what the group is doing, especially on these busy 6 months now before Wisconsinites head to the polls again. Specifically, we asked Robert if he'd come on and talk about medical debt because Citizen Action is so dedicated to health care for all. And medical debt continues to be such a large and many would argue unnecessary problem when it comes to Americans and their good health. Robert, good morning.
Good morning, Pat. Great to be with you always.
Yeah, nice to have you here as well. We really appreciate it. Let's start with what Citizen Action is up to these days. How does it tie into your core mission 6 months out from when people go to the polls? What is the group doing and communicating to the public in the many places where you have hubs of activity?
Yeah, so we're spread across the state. In fact, we parallel very well the listening area of Civic Media Radio Network. So we have chapters we call organizing co-ops, and we're in 4 regions, major regions around the state, and then in the whole southeast part of Wisconsin, the Milwaukee area. So we're just celebrating our 40th anniversary, Pat. So we just got through with having 5 different celebrations in the 5 regional hubs we're in Wisconsin. So we've been around a long time trying to work on huge issues and build an active base, a grassroots base of citizens that are impacting politics, impacting public policy, making government reflect the actual needs of the people and the will of the people. So our big issue areas, Pat, are around healthcare and then the whole nexus of issues around climate change, the cost of energy, and economic justice and opportunity. Because making a huge investments in a climate transition also have huge economic impact and also savings for individuals for the high cost of energy. So we have a lot going on healthcare right now, Pat. We've been working hard to deal with skyrocketing healthcare costs. I know we're going to deal with that during this interview. But one solution that we have been really advocating for is a badge care public option bill that opens Badger Care to everyone to buy in. So you don't only have to be eligible on it, doubles eligibility levels, and allows small businesses in. Small businesses, only a third can even afford to buy health insurance for their employees. It's so expensive for small employers. And that bill, the Badge Care Public Option Bill, got every Democrat but 2 to co-sponsor it, which is a very high number, Pat. You were in the legislature. You know, most bills don't get to that level of co-sponsorship.
True.
And so now we're going to try to make it a big electoral issue because, Pat, the number one inflation issue, you've seen all the polling that inflation is one of the top issues, if not the top issue. If you dig deeper, the thing people are most fearful of and concerned about on cost is healthcare. So if you dig, and the solutions to that are right in front of us, can be also addressed at the state level. And it has to do, quite frankly, with the deregulation in many ways of healthcare and its privatization. Our hospitals are unregulated, unlike the utilities. And there are plenty of problems with utilities and their rate increases. They have to get them approved by a state agency called the Public Service Commission. No such thing with hospitals. They got themselves deregulated. They can build anything they want. They said leave it to them in the 80s when they got themselves deregulated. And this has helped drive massive costs and very dangerous closures as predatory competition between these huge hospital monopolies undercut some players and they leave the market. That happened in the Chippewa Valley, Pat, I'm sure you've heard about, with two major hospitals closing and a whole bunch of clinics. And then, of course, we left things to the insurance industry, big pharma. And so we have the most expensive healthcare system in the world. It's driving massive amounts of medical debt. And yet we don't cover everyone. And people don't even use their health insurance often because they're afraid they can't afford the co-pays, deductibles. And you know what? They often can't.
Can we take care of the low-hanging fruit on this debate from people who would look at all of this and say, and again, this is about as low-hanging fruit as it gets, well, we've had the Affordable Care Act for 10 years and costs are still going up and there are still these issues, so the Affordable Care Act must not have worked. I'll let you take it because I can swing at that piñata all day long.
And, you know, President Obama really took on, obviously, a difficult fight. It was very hard to pass the Affordable Care Act, and Republicans tried to repeal it a number of times, and then it looked like they were going to during Donald Trump's presidency, but they narrowly failed to do so. We knew it would become more popular over time. So now you have President Trump, former President Trump, trying to back away from the idea that he would repeal the Affordable Care Act. But the reason it hasn't solved all these problems is it was incremental reform, Pat. And if President Obama made a mistake, it was not making that clear that we needed to make further steps. So what the Affordable Care Act did was it expanded the Medicaid program for low-income folks and disabled folks, made more people eligible, and got rid of a lot of the gaps in it. But the Supreme Court opened up a loophole that the states could voluntarily opt out. And that's what Wisconsin's been doing since 2014. We've led that fight every budget cycle and will continue to. Governor Evers has been strongly supportive, but we've had a gerrymandered legislature that's blocked it. So it did that, but not in Wisconsin. Unfortunately, we're one of 9 states now that hasn't expanded Medicaid, Badger Care in Wisconsin. But the other thing it did, it created a place for people to go who don't have good insurance at work. Used to be that if you didn't have an employer that provided you coverage, I just mentioned 2/3 of small employers can't even afford to do it. It's so expensive for them. Now with the marketplace, you can sign up for coverage. You get federal subsidies to help make it affordable. It bans a lot of the abuses like pre-existing conditions, requires a lot of different kinds of free preventive care. So it provided a place to go. So that's why we got higher levels of coverage. But it did not address frontally the rapid hyperinflation in healthcare driven by big pharma, big insurance, and the hospital monopolies. And so that is the next step that's always needed to happen. And unfortunately, Pat, the same people who tried to repeal the Affordable Care Act and block it are the ones who stand in the way and stand with the big healthcare industry interests in stopping us from actually taking on the cost crisis in healthcare.
Exactly. I mean, again, in the case of talking about incremental reform, the big reform through the Affordable Care Act was about coverage. If you can at least get people covered by something as opposed to being fully uninsured, because then that resulting charity care or bad debt drives up costs for all of us. So get them covered with something. But now it's the something that needs to be reformed, as well as, like you said, the continued corporatization of medicine and allowing it to be, something that, rates are set in a way that's more like, Wall Street than by the old, say, hospital rate setting commission. So I want to get more into this topic of medical debt with you on the other side of this break, Robert. We got Robert Kraig from Citizen Action talking with us right now. A quick note that the Brewers lost in Kansas City 3-2. They will do it again tonight. Catch that on several Civic Media radio stations starting just after 6 o'clock this evening. Back with Robert Kraig and more in just a moment, live from Lake Wausau on the Civic Media Radio Network. This is Up North News Radio. I'm Pat Kreitlow. Okay, Robert, this is a 60-second break, and then we'll be back on until 7:29.
Right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Few times I've been around that track, so it's not just gonna happen like that, 'cause ain't no holler back.
20 past 7 now on this Tuesday morning on Up North News Radio. Tomorrow, we'll have our weekly climate check with Melissa Baldoff and our homeroom segment, which will mark Teacher Appreciation Week here in the U.S. and, of course, all across Wisconsin as well. Robert Kraig from Citizen Action is with us for a few minutes more. We'll be following that by having Congressman Mark Pocan join us in just about 15 minutes to get the latest from Washington, D.C. So, Robert, in terms of, again, healthcare reform, and we've spelled out the kinds of things that need to happen. And yet, while we have more coverage for Americans and people in Wisconsin than ever before, medical debt is still a thing at levels that are frankly looked at by every other developed country in the world, it seems. And they look and say, really? You still have families that have to declare bankruptcy because they got sick or got in an accident? I mean, Robert, it's still a major problem for Wisconsin families, isn't it?
It's a huge problem. And it's why more candidates need to run with serious solutions to the healthcare cost crisis and a lot of the abuses involved. And I will give the Biden administration credit. They have clamped down on regulations on people being reported to debt collection agencies for medical debt, because it's not a good indicator of people's credit worthiness. Why? Because anyone who has any significant medical interaction gets huge surprise medical bills quite often. And it doesn't mean they wouldn't make their car payments or their house payments or their credit card payments for when it's transparent what they're going to pay. So the numbers are astounding, Pat. About 20 million Americans, according to the best research, have significant medical debt. And those who don't are often avoiding medical care in order to avoid having medical debt. For those who do, there's good research that shows they are having trouble paying their other bills. Because if you end up, you don't know, this is the billing is not transparent, it's complicated, and you don't know what the price is going to be. When you buy a car, when you buy a TV, you know what price you're going to pay. You don't know in healthcare. You can't find out, and the prices don't make sense. They're all over the maps. One hospital will charge 4 times for the same procedure that another does, but the other will charge less for a different procedure. And there are all these different billers involved. And so it's deliberately opaque. It's much worse than any kind of abusive flea market or any kind of scenario you can imagine. And the result is we did with a national firm. We did a survey, a scientific survey of Wisconsin last year, Pat, and 54% of Wisconsinites are avoiding needed medical care because they're afraid they can't afford it, even though they're insured. 90% of the Americans are now insured, and 95% of Wisconsinites, roughly. And by the way, that comes out of your salary if you get it at work. In other words, they're like Citizen Action Wisconsin, we could have 2 more organizers if we didn't have to pay so much for healthcare, right? And that's true everywhere else. And so you are paying for this health insurance, even if it's a benefit you get from your employer. yet you can't even use it because they've added all the co-pays, deductibles, and because there's a surprise gigantic charge you can't figure out and have trouble contesting every time you use it. And then people who do have to do it end up with massive medical debt, and it affects their lives. It affects them meeting the basics on everything else. So it's a real crisis. People know it. I think they will reward elected officials and people who run for office, Pat, who will run on this issue, and there are real solutions.
And so in that vein of solutions, as you're doing, your canvassing, as you go and meet with folks and you hear these stories, you understand the enormity of the problem at the household economic level. And yet so many folks may not necessarily know the importance of voting for this legislative candidate versus that legislative candidate, or this congressional candidate versus that congressional candidate. What are the things that Citizen Action thinks a voter should be looking for in a candidate for Congress or legislature? What qualities or positions do you think would make them the more effective choice when you're talking to voters?
We have essentially outsourced control of all of this to for-profit entities. Now, hospitals say they're nonprofit, but they're nonprofit in name only. They operate in the same way Wall Street traded companies like big insurance and big pharmaceutical companies do. And if you leave them in control, they'll charge as much as they can. They also focus on profit. What is profitable? So often communities don't have the care they need, like primary care and mental health care, because they have a lower margin. And you have all these specialty services for when people get very sick. Well, guess what? It's a lot cheaper. We'd have a system that worked better if we kept more people from getting that sick in the first place, which other countries, including a lot less developed countries like Costa Rica, believe it or not, do a lot better job than we do. So thing about moving to expanding Badger care dramatically and letting everyone get into Badger care is that Medicaid programs, the government sets a fair price and the government does not allow massive co-pays and deductibles. So the Badger Care Public Option Bill, which I mentioned, all but 2 Democrats co-sponsored in the last session, and a lot are already running on in primaries as a bill, that would start to shift control away, and people would have a choice of an option that was not corporate insurance and where the price was, it was understandable what the price was. The premiums are lower, the co-pays and deductibles are virtually non-existent, and the price is set, so you know what it is. And so that would be a great improvement. Another thing we have to get to, and I don't want to step on next week's headlines, Pat, but I'll give Up North News here on Up North Radio a tip. We will be announcing some major reforms of the hospital industry next Thursday in Eau Claire with our mutual good friend Jeff Smith, who's a former Citizen Action organizer. And so we will have more things for people to discuss and run on. And the reason we do it in Eau Claire is because the Chippewa Valley just had 2 massive hospitals closed, one Eau Claire, one in Chippewa Falls, and the entire Privia healthcare system. And I was reading the Eau Claire Leader Telegram and its editorial on the subject, Pat, and I give them credit. They were honest. They go, no one is offering any real solutions. So we don't know. We only have hope that something will be done, but we don't know what it is. I'm not making fun of them at all. They were telling us how the debate about it so far hasn't even offered real solutions to the problem in the system that's causing these hospital closures and skyrocketing costs. Jeff Smith and I will be announcing some very good bills that Jeff is working on next Thursday.
Well, I see my homework assignment is to go pester my big brother there, the senator, and figure out the best way to help pass this along next week.
Let me add one other thing. You're talking to Mark Pocan, former Citizen Action Wisconsin board member. He's in our 40-year anniversary video talking about his experience in Citizen Action. He's going after all the abuses of Medicare Advantage, which is another huge issue. And they're moving seniors through predatory marketing practices over to narrow network plans where there are a lot of claims denials. And so seniors now are unknowingly, because they're offered all these benefits, leaving Medicare and ending up in the same situation that younger people with regular commercial insurance do. So Mark has been a leader on that and trying to rein in those abuses.
We'll look forward to visiting with him about that as well, because yes, it is so easy to continue backsliding, even as we, have incremental and significant reforms that can be made out there. And I will say again for folks, part of the inspiration for this radio show is Citizen Action's Battleground Wisconsin podcast. If you're not a subscriber, go rectify that. Look for Battleground Wisconsin wherever you get your podcasts, and learn more at citizenactionwi.org. Robert Kraig, thank you for helping me get caught up. Appreciate it. Have a wonderful day.
And thanks for the plug. We're reaching to rank the 4th rated podcast in Wisconsin by one of those kind of big data services. I don't know how they do it, but good to see it that high on the list, Pat.
Sounds great. Mark Bocan's next. You're up north. And there we go. We're clear. All right, Robert, thank you. That was awesome.
Always fun to work with a professional like you, Pat. Enjoyed it.
You are too kind. Have a great day.
You too.
All right,
bye-bye.
See ya. Congressman.
Hey, good morning, Pat. How you doing?
Good. I hope your ears were buzzing after all those nice things Robert Kraig just said about you.
No, I didn't hear. I just got on. Sorry, I didn't hear anything.
Oh, our topic was most of our topic was medical debt and healthcare reform,
Okay.
and they're going to be talking next week about some ideas for hospital reform, given what has happened in the Chippewa Valley.
Yeah.
And so he made sure to make mention of what you've been doing to try to keep Medicare Advantage plans from turning into just the same old con as, regular health insurance often seems to be.
We actually, I have a early morning 7:30 a.m. Zoom with one of the advocacy groups. We're working on a few things with the agency directly, but it's kind of one of my new projects, definitely, because majority of people are on Medicare Advantage now, and the overbilling alone is enough to pay for either Medigap for every single person on Medicare, or to expand Medicare to dental, vision, hearing for every single person, just on the overbilling they know intentionally that they rip us off on.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Hey, another topic I wanted to make sure it was okay to hit you up with is, and this was from a Tammy Baldwin press release from yesterday. Mm-hmm. So it appears that the Senate Ag Committee, or the Democrats on it, have kind of finalized what they would like to see in the next farm bill. We already have a feel for what House Republicans want in the next farm bill. So I can ask you how you think things are going to go. Are they going to shoot for a farm bill in the spring versus the fall? Is it going to get punted till next year? So does that sound about right in terms of the setup?
Yeah. In fact, I just talked to someone who serves on ag 2 days ago about this, and it's going to be highly partisan in the House. It's going to be a Republican bill. They're not trying to make it a bipartisan bill, which is what we all had to hope for. And so there's going to start a whole new fight. And we know from their appropriations bill, they had cut 41% to the Department of Ag. So we kind of know where their values are. So glad to.
Okay. And again, you don't have to overpromise anything, but it would seem that there might be just enough House Republicans who say, no, we have to get something done, that like everything else that passes the House, it's going to come with a bunch of Democratic votes? Or is that maybe too wishful thinking?
We have to get to that point where you could actually get Democratic votes, because I think they're going to do a partisan bill out of the House. So
we got a ways to go.
Yeah, we got a ways to go, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else new with you? You want to make sure I don't forget?
No, whatever you want to talk about, Pat. I mean, clearly very, very concerned what's going on in the Middle East again. But, at some point, I hope it doesn't get to the point that people just tune it out, but it's worrisome.
Well, I would like to get into the notion that, this must be, again, the Green Lantern thing that they had with Obama. I mean, how is Biden not waving a magic wand and solving all this? And so we have to vote against him?
Yeah.
Seems a little counterintuitive. I mean, you can acknowledge that it's difficult, and that maybe he could be saying or doing more things, but again, look at the alternative.
Yeah, I'll tell you, maybe let's not do that angle then, because right now I'm a little upset with the White House. We have the night with their campaign, but remember when Hillary didn't listen to anyone about Wisconsin's campaign and she never showed up?
Yep.
I don't know that feeling going on.
All right, let's avoid that then. Okay, I'll give you 45 seconds here to rest your voice, and then we'll get her going.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. So regular listeners know that every Friday at 7:50 you might hear bumper music that sounds like this, and Dan Schumacher's going to come on, and he and Greg are going to prattle on and on about what Grateful Dead song is what. And so I reached out to Congressman Pocan's office yesterday and said, any preferences for walk-up music? And the response I got was, any Grateful Dead would work out just fine. And so Congressman Pocan, Greg, I've created a monster part 2. If you guys want to take the first 5 minutes and just do, Dead talk, I'm good with that, I guess.
This is what the people want to hear.
I'm with you. I still have a ticket stub for Jerry's last concert from Chicago I was at, and I've kept the ticket stub. So.
Oh my God, look at Greg's face. He is just, it's like he's in the presence of Grateful Dead royalty.
I love that so much. Well, enjoy it, sir. Enjoy it.
All right. Well, we have much to explore in future conversations. We'll get things going from Mark Pocan's work life by picking up where we left off in our last segment with Robert Kraig from Citizen Action, and talking about healthcare reform and medical debt and trying to help households, avoid debt unnecessarily. It's one thing you can't control if you get sick or get in an accident or something, but you can control some of the decisions that you make when it comes to purchasing coverage. And Congressman, one of the things that Robert Kraig mentioned that you've been working on are what's called Medicare Advantage plans, which theoretically are supposed to be improvements by harnessing the power of the private marketplace. It sure sounds to me like it can be a recipe for overspending. What's your impression of how Medicare Advantage is working, and what folks like you can do to watch out for the consumer dollar?
Yeah, so this is one we just want to caution people, because Medicare Advantage is a private insurance alternative to Medicare that is a case study on how lobbyists work in Washington. They crafted a bill that couldn't have been more profitable for private industry, for insurance companies, and that's directly taking on one of the most popular services that we provide, Medicare, and threatening it. Just in overbilling alone from Medicare Advantage companies, it was $140 billion in the last time we kept track of that. That is enough to cover Medigap insurance for every single person on Medicare, or to extend dental, vision, and hearing to every single person on Medicare. And that's just where they're ripping us off, much less the prior authorizations they require. So if you have a medical issue and you're on Medicare, you go to the doctor and you get taken care of. You have that happen on Medicare Advantage, you have to get prior authorization, and they turn down millions a year. And here's the most damning statistic. 85% of those cases, when appealed, get overturned. You get the cut care, but delayed care is often death, bluntly, when you're that population. So, this is twice as profitable as normal health insurance. Companies are fighting hard to keep it the way it is. And fortunately, we have a group of members of Congress and some nonprofit groups on the outside. They're working together to try to protect Medicare, because only Medicare is Medicare, and also protect consumers from not getting the health care they need.
Between this issue and the one I mentioned in our last hour about Dick Eline's PAC having to change an ad about Medicare and Tammy Baldwin, I feel like there should be this new slogan: "Let Medicare be Medicare." Yeah. Don't misinterpret it. Don't try to gussy it up with things that are going to end up costing people more money. If you stick with its original intent, which is funny because we're talking about people who are normally big on original intent, you'd have a pretty damn good program going here.
Yeah, and if you really wanted to talk about Medicare, where we would improve it was we'd figure out a way to cover that Medigap, the donut hole that, again, the lobbyists, the industry created, or you'd figure out a way to add dental, vision, and hearing, because clearly that's healthcare. And that would make it better. And we could do all those things just with where we're getting ripped off on this experiment that has gone, pretty Frankenstein-esque. So, I just think what we're trying to do is make sure people are aware. The other thing just to mention, Pat, is, they advertise when you see all those commercials, that's Medicare Advantage. And they say, call and get information. No, you're getting a salesperson when you call those numbers. And they're trying to get more people, and they've got a majority of people in the country now on Medicare Advantage. But the calls I get into my office where people can't get care and have problems is when they go to Medicare Advantage all too often. And we just want to warn people, look, they have every right to go to a private insurance alternative, but they should know that there are a lot of consequences.
And it's been said before that, a really good first stopping place, maybe not everywhere, but in many, many, many places, would be your county office on aging.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because again, one side is advertising Medicare Advantage. Medicare doesn't really advertise, right? So that's part of the situation. But getting that fair information. I've had nurses at town halls tell me like they didn't know because they're too big government, our government program, how to go. And as soon as they found out, they clearly understand medically. Unless you're really young and healthy, the problem is Medicare Advantage gives you a free gym membership, or you'll get vision coverage or something that's a little extra. And people get enticed, especially if you're, first entering the Medicare age and you're healthy. It might seem like it's an advantage, but then years later, it's hard to get out of that and get back to Medicare. And then we get the complaints. So just really do research before you make that decision.
Let me go back a step for folks that might have missed it in the last hour, that this restoration pack, which is funded primarily by Richard Uline of the Uline packaging company, had to change an ad because it said that Tammy Baldwin had voted to cut, money from Medicare, when what it was because Medicare finally overcame 20 years of Republican opposition and is able to negotiate for cheaper prescription drug prices. You're talking about saving something like $160 billion over a 10-year period, saving money. And some Republican talking points go, oh, they're voting to cut $160 billion from Medicare. No. That's cost savings for the taxpayer. I can understand where some folks on the right might be confused by that, because they see if it's $160 billion not going into big pharma, there must be something lost here. No, it's actually a gain for the taxpayer.
Oh, Pat, it's so much worse. So there's a whole lobby corps here also trying to stop us from doing what we did. And I don't think a single Republican has supported our efforts to negotiate for cheaper drug prices when we're getting ripped off as consumers. There's a story, if I could just share real quick. Katrina Shanklin was in town meeting with someone who is a lobbyist who used to actually work for a Wisconsin member. And I asked what she thought about, negotiating for drug prices. She's like, of course, it's great. It's wonderful. And the person said, oh, no, that's the wrong answer. The industry wants to continue ripping us off. It made me, more endeared to Katrina than ever for her reaction that, how could someone actually, say this? In fact, she even said, well, I won't go to the whole conversation. The bottom line is there is a whole industry here to make money and trying to stop this. So when Uline says this, it's just part of that effort to make it so that as consumers, we're the suckers again, and Big Pharma makes a lot of money.
Absolutely. Let's switch gears here and go over to the Farm Bill for a moment, which, of course, as we know, is more than 6 months late. Is due at least by this October. A lot of folks would like to get it done sooner, so it doesn't get caught up in partisan politics closer to Election Day. We've talked in the past about how House Republicans, or at least many of them, are supporting ideas for a farm bill that would lead to substantial cuts. What's new from Senator Tammy Baldwin's office yesterday is it sounds like Senate Democrats on the Agriculture Committee have now essentially worked up their wish list for the next farm bill, which I'm going to say, without looking at it point by point, I'm going to guess, Congressman, is radically different than your House Republican colleagues, which leads my question to you, which I admit is entirely speculative. But now that we know where Senate Dems are coming from and House Republicans are coming from, what's your feeling on whether Wisconsin farmers, consumers, producers are going to see some kind of a productive farm bill yet between now and Election Day?
Yeah, I mean, I'm worried because I just talked to a member of the Ag Committee over the weekend, and they told me unfortunately, it looks like the House is going to punt out a completely partisan bill, which is a shame because the Farm Bill, part of even how it's crafted is to make it go beyond partisanship. But hey, I'm in this session. I understand everything is going to be partisan from the House Republican majority. But in doing so, we have a deadline of September 30th of last year that we extended to the end of the year, that now we extended to this September 30th. And I'm worried that if you have two bills that are completely different, how does that get resolved? And it does affect people in Wisconsin. And don't forget two things. One, when the Republicans passed their original appropriations bill for ag, they cut spending 40% to the Department of Ag. So that shows where their real priorities are when it comes to agriculture. And two, if we don't get something done by the end of the year, we hit another, or actually by September 30th, it would be, because that's when we extended it. We go back to milk pricing law from the 40s, which greatly hurts Wisconsin's dairy farmers. So this isn't like just another thing to have, team red, team blue, like the House Republicans are trying to do. This is something that could have a severe impact in Wisconsin.
from the standpoint of land conservation and natural resources, there's a reason why programs exist where farmers would actually get paid not to farm certain lands. So that way they're not losing money by not farming it, but this is land that then can, be conserved, not developed. And yet, if I'm not mistaken, Congressman, that is one of the big targets of Republicans in the House, is to get rid of these conservation programs. And I do wonder what kind of an impact that could end up having for Wisconsin from both a farm family and an environmental standpoint.
Now, I don't believe they've put language to paper yet. So I don't want to speak for something that hasn't happened yet, but we know things that they've argued for before, and which would be a number of other things, including getting rid of the funding for the Dairy Innovation Fund that helps dairy farmers, right? It's money that I always found interesting, that when Wisconsin Republicans went to the rescue for the dairy farmer, they went to, not only did the Republicans cut the fund, the entire $25 million to help those dairy farmers, but when they had an amendment to restore it, Brian Stile and Derek Van Orden wanted to restore 10 million. They're 40% of the time there for Wisconsin's farmers. I want someone who's there 100%. In fact, I think we asked for even more money than the 25 million for that fund. And I think just you can get an idea of what's going to happen when we get to this. I mean, we've got to protect those farmers, especially those family farmers in Wisconsin. And when we finally see language, it's going to matter.
What I'm not hearing you say is that Wisconsin's one member of the House Agriculture Committee, Derek Van Orden, has been, like right there on the front lines, with you on behalf of Wisconsin farmers. I'm not sensing that from his office.
Well, he wants to be known as the Cheese King. So he definitely wants the title, but sometimes you got to do the work to get there. And he didn't on that Dairy Innovation Fund, right? That was a huge fail, only coming up with 40% of what they actually need, and didn't stand up to his caucus to do the right thing. So we'll see what happens as we get to the Farm Bill. Maybe he'll find a spine, but right now, I'm not seeing it.
All right, we've got just enough time. I know people think, you're pushing it off. Yeah, I'm pushing it off, but let's go ahead and bring up the soap opera. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Speaker Mike Johnson, because the question's got to be asked this week. It sounds like the Congresswoman from Georgia is going to once again try to depose a speaker. What's going to happen this week, Mark? Anything?
So here's the problem. Marjorie Taylor Greene lives for TV cameras and attention. She should really just go to her real calling, which is all-star wrestling, because that's what she really wants internally in her life. And unfortunately, the press corps in DC is like flies on poop. They just come to her when she does all this, and then she just kind of puts it off. I don't think the Republicans want to do this again. I was told by a Wisconsin Republican that this did so much damage to their caucus last year when they had these votes, that there's really no want to do this. So if this happens, I've said this is completely their problem. I will probably vote present if it comes up, because I'm not going to say that Marjorie Taylor Greene is in any way a serious legislator, because she's not. But I'm also not going to say we should defend the most homophobic and a whole lot of other speaker that we've ever had in United States history. But this is all their internal problem. They created the rules that caused this. They have to live through it. Unfortunately, we all live through it also, but I'm not going to enable it.
No, and for folks that are saying, well, maybe Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries, becomes a speaker at some point. Again, how much more soap opera can we handle? The Republicans are plenty busy right now to be worried about anything like that.
The way that happens, that Hakeem becomes speaker, is in November. We do this through the elections, and then we can actually have longevity in actual functionality again.
Stability, yes. All the good things that we should be expecting from the House of Representatives. Congressman Mark Pocan from the 2nd Congressional District. Always appreciate these monthly updates. Thank you very much. Take
Absolutely.
care. All right.
You, Pat. Take care.
Have a great day. Coming up next, Chad Holmes from Bull Falls Radio will tell us what's coming up on his show in the Wausau area. And if you're not in the Wausau area, you can hear it on the Civic Media app, all part of the Civic Media Radio Network. Back in a moment.
Ringing that bluebell, caught up in sunlight, going out singing or walking in the sunshine. Come on, honey, come along with me.
I absolutely freaked out there at the end where my brain couldn't remember if it was 4920 or 4900.
You got it, buddy.
We've got to get consistent on that. Yeah. All righty.
I like that man a lot. He's just a good guy.
He is. And the musical taste, that's just frosting on the cake.
That just makes it even better.
Mm-hmm.
Come on. Come on, Pat.
What's not to love?
What's not to love? What are we doing here? Hey? I don't know. It's early. I've had half a cup of coffee.
Oh, I hear you.
Where's our boy?
I don't know.
People listening on the live stream. Where's Chad Holmes?
Yes, but ring him up.
Do you get a lot of engagement? I can't see the chat, so nobody talks.
Well, there's Roger and there's Rob from Tigerton, and then there's Chad with 5 seconds to spare. So
Chad, there we go.
Taking a look at the daily newsletter that you can get from Up North News. Sign up at upnorthnewswi.com. Christina has an article today on when to plant what in Wisconsin. It matters the time of year and what it is that you're sticking into the ground. So look for that. Also, an article about the Affordable Connectivity Program, which had made internet access cheaper for some 20 million households before Republicans let the spending lapse on that. And now internet access is much more expensive for families all across Wisconsin. Look for that in our newsletter. Again, upnorthnewswi.com. Here is Chad Holmes. I'm sorry, let me get this straight. Here is the award-winning Chad Holmes, fresh off the Wisconsin Broadcasters Association Awards. Congratulations, sir.
Well, I will put it this way. Some people say that second place is first loser.
If you're not first, you're last.
So I don't know whether I should be congratulated or I should be getting back to the grindstone and working a little bit harder.
Chad, I have just a piece of. I've not been in radio as long as you have, nor Pat, but I think the words you were searching for was "thank you."
No, if the man wants to apply himself and
gotta get back to the grind here and say, where did I go wrong here?
Where did I go wrong?
Where did I go wrong?
Being second place in the state.
God. Oh my gosh.
Well, you know what? This is a guy who covers way too much sports, who sees at the state championships, only one team can win, and I guess it's got to be you. So, all right, fine. We'll try
again.
harder.
Welcome to the show, the loser, Chad Holmes.
Thank you, Greg. I need a good kick in the rear to get going. Okay,
whatever motivates you, my friend. Yep.
Exactly.
That's fine.
Derek Van Orden School of Motivation.
Oh wow, it got harsh here all of a sudden. What you been up to over there, Mr. Holmes? A lot of sports, a lot of good guests.
Yeah, a lot of sports keeping me busy. Yesterday was a beautiful day to be out. It's like some days I've had days where I have to get the covering out because a lot of spring they don't have room in the box. So when it rains, I got to make sure that all this very, very important civic media equipment stays very dry. Well, I get very wet because I make sure I know what the priorities are here and make sure that goes. But
they have ponchos and raincoats and things for the humans,
well,
not just for the radio equipment.
I tell you, I am just a step behind in every area of my life and career right now.
Wait a minute. Wasn't it last year? Did you tell me something like you bought 3 of the same coat because you could get a discount on it?
I bought 2 of not the same of a similar.
Okay, you bought 2. Could you not use one for the rainy days?
That's a good idea. I tell you.
See, I pay attention.
Here. It's fantastic, but it's hard to believe we're coming to the end of the school year. But right now, that's the thing that's kind of jumping out at me. It's like, it's one of the cool things to follow these student athletes and the kids and the parents and everybody. And it's graduation season almost. And I don't know about you. These years are going by so fast.
Oh,
I keep looking for the break. Say, slow down, soak up some of this stuff. And it just goes by so very quickly.
Look at this. Tony
There you
listening
go.
up in
Tony is
Hayward says
exactly
they were
right.
winter coats, not raincoats. Our listeners pay attention to you, Chad.
I was going to say our listeners pay attention, but the guys that say what says Pat Kreitlow and says Greg Bach, those guys they don't pay attention to me.
I'm so sorry.
I'm working right now, Mr. Second Place Holmes.
I know. I don't know.
It's funny to listen.
I got this energy this morning.
To listen to your what you're saying here about coming up to the end of the spring sports season is kind of like how at the end of the of football season you have like this sense of relief that you don't have to be on the road all the time in so many places. And I've noticed that in you, that feeling lasts about 12 hours, and then you're itching right away to get back into action. And so what I'm hearing from you is, yeah, it's about to be the start of summer. I got some more time to myself. I can do more. No, you really want to get right back into the trenches here.
Well, the thing about summertime is during the summertime, the football teams are getting ready for the year. They have what's called 7-on-7. It's basically there's those little leagues out there where they have no linemen. It's just a passing league. There's no real contact. There's no pads. But I find myself hanging out there just to say, okay, who's coming up this year? Who do I have to keep an eye on once the season starts in late August? So yeah, you're exactly right. And I think for a lot of us, it's like, hey, it's wonderful to be away for a week when you take a little time off. But by the end of the week, you're ready to get back out there and do it again.
I hate to be negative about this, but if you take all of that extra time you're now taking to go to these 7-on-7 practices, if you now divide your
all the time,
divide your salary by that many more hours, I mean, you're getting an hourly rate that's way lower than somebody that says, "Would you like fries with that?"
But the thing that's different about that theory is you're indicating that that's work. I find it to be pleasurable, and I tell people all the time, hey. I shouldn't say this out loud, but it's, I say this sure beats working for a living.
You know what they say, when you love what you do, you'll always win second place.
Oh, keeps coming back to that.
I tell you,
I won no awards.
I don't know anybody that enjoys what they're doing more than the two guys at Civic Media who are busting their butts to travel the most with their equipment. Because I was with Todd Alba, when he came up to Eau Claire on Friday, and I've been to a few different functions with him, watching him set up, watching him tear down, and it's such a process because you have to take good care of the equipment and transport it, and yet he wouldn't change a thing about what he's doing. And I'm sure if I saw all the times you have to set up and tear down and have a smile on your face when somebody wants to take up your time and ask some questions, I mean, it's totally inspiring to watch, that you guys are willing to work that hard and still love what you do.
But that Alba is just on another level. I mean, what was he getting his hair cut on the air yesterday?
Yeah.
I mean, he's got ideas that I wish I could come up with.
Well, he's got ideas. Some people have ideas on the one hand, and on the other hand, some people have a life. And they've got things to do, but
he was multitasking. He was working and getting his haircut. So I gotta give credit. That I gotta say, that was a first place award-winning stuff yesterday. So I hope they save that up because he deserves that. And by the way, I hope you're putting in, Pat, because I thought, where were you on Saturday? I was looking for Kreitlow on Saturday, and he wasn't around.
I do not. I get completely demoralized by those things.
I know what you mean.
And so
I did for the first 15 years of my career, and I said to somebody the other night, I said, I wish I'd kept that attitude. Because I did it for 15 years of my career. I said, this is silly. This is really silly.
I just enjoy the thing. The honor I get is that you honor me with your presence.
You're
Chad,
a better man than
and Greg and listeners.
And then they can't call you second place Pat.
And on that sincere note, thank you, Mr. Holmes. Have a great show.
Hey, thank you, Pat. Have a good
Greg,
one.
we'll see you on Jane's show in a couple of hours here. Thanks so much to all of you for being here. Up North News is the Wisconsin digital outlet for Courier, a pro-democracy news network building a more informed, engaged, and representative America. I'm Pat Kreitlow. Have a great day.